This podcast is a proud member of Pod Nation Media Network.
Flicker of wheels, the shadows crawl. Curtains rise, a ghostly sprawl. The frames are whispers, the stories call. The tractors hum in a hollow tune. Moonlight cuts through velvet gloom. Is it a dream or a real too soon? Step into the screen where the dark turns keen. Journey with the Cinephile, unseen, unseen. The tales twist and turn as the silent light burns. A world unknown where the shadows yearn.
Hello and welcome, listeners, to Journey with a Cinephile, a horror movie podcast, where we take a deep dive into the world of horror cinema, from the eerie classics to the latest spine-chilling releases. Join me as I explore the history, themes, and artistry of horror one film at a time. Whether you're a seasoned horror fan or just stepping into the shadows, this journey is for you. So dim the lights, embrace the fear, and let's talk horror. And let's do that on episode 309. I am your tour guide of David Garrett Jr., recording out of Columbus, Ohio. And for this one here, going to be my Voyage to the Fives, number 24. So my two featured reviews here are going to, doesn't make the greatest double feature, but I actually did find an interesting little through line here. The first one's from 1945 of Zombies on Broadway, and then I'm pairing this up with Good Boy. The big thing here is that we have characters going to a place that might not be safe for their survival, but they have to go there in order to complete something. So then for mini reviews here, I got to check out a screener here ahead of being on the Dread broadcast, and that's going to be The Hem. This is coming out here soon. And then I also got to check out my 2015 rewatch for the Voyage to the Fives. Is going to be Hell House LLC. And then I got to check out a screener of Scurry. I gave a watch to a movie from 1928 for a movie or a horror movie challenge of The Man Who Laughs. And then I gave a rewatch here to a 2025 film of Clown in a Cornfield, and then I gave a screener to a documentary of Lost Contact, UFOs after Wartime, and then I pretty much watched all of American Horror Story Delicate. I'll get into that why. I watched 7 episodes, so that'll be featured here as well. So then the only other thing I want to talk about here real quick before I do my monthly review is that I'm for sure going to be attending Nightmares Film Festival 10, so NFFX. So this is going to be here in Columbus, Ohio from October 16th to the 19th at the legendary Gateway Film Center. It is now, they have featured that they are what they're going to be doing here for this 4-day celebration of #BetterHorror. And it's going to be 18 features, 130 shorts, 120 filmmakers and screenwriters alongside, one-of-a-kind events, world premieres, and rare in-person screenings to bring everything together here. I'm not going to read everything just because there is so much here, but I'm so excited. Adrian Toffe, who did Be My Cat, a film for Anne, his 9 years in the making, We Put the World to Sleep, is making its world premiere, according to this, with Adrian and co-star Drew Usel in attendance. Kevin Lewis, who did Willy's Wonderland, his Twisted movie that I've already seen, actually, and I'm actually going to be watching it in the theater this time around. Pig Hill, making its North American premiere, with Kenneth Vin in attendance. We also have Chris Stuckman's eagerly awaited directorial debut of Shelby Oaks, the Midwest premiere, with Chris in attendance. I actually tried to get a screener of this, and I couldn't, so I'm actually stoked that I'm going to get to see it in the theater. And we also have Robbie Banfitch from The Outwaters. His newest Descent into Terror, Tinsman Road, is making its Midwest premiere. Other highlights include Blood Barn, an 80s throwback slasher, for its world premiere. If It Bleeds, a horror packed with genre icons, world premiere. And Landlord, a gritty noir horror, the North American premiere. We also have Brandon Christensen's Body Cam making its Midwest premiere. And Tina Romero's Queens of the Dead Midwest premiere, introduced live by Columbus drag queen legend Nina West. Round out other notables in a lineup that mixes rising creators with genre royalty. Adding to the buzz is a slate of singular live events, one of the most anticipated in the world's first audience playthrough of Afar, an interactive horror film from Jason Trost, who did like the FP and Waves of Madness, who will travel from Australia to guide participants through the groundbreaking experience. Nightmare's notorious Midnight Mindfuck returns with Todd Roell's theatrical-only X-rated shocker, Fuck My Son, never to be released on streaming. The festival also offers one of the only 2 theatrical screenings in the world of VHS horror, a rare chance to experience the cult franchise newest genre and entry into cinema. So this one, I'm not going to go anything more there. There's also some great events and everything, so I'm so excited to be coming back to this one and being able to cover it. So that'll be coming up here in 2 weeks for my podcast, as I believe it's going to be after this one. It'll be the next week. I'll be actually attending that, but I wanted to kind of give that information there. Wanted to get as much of it out as I can. So yeah, if you are close, I would, check into coming to this as well. So then I'm going to stop there. I'm going to go ahead and get you over then to my
monthly review.
And let's go ahead and do my monthly review for September 2025. So I watched 38 total films. So this actually compares with being on the higher end, as the highest I've ever done would have been 2019, where I did 49, and the lowest would have been 28 back in 2018. Like last year I did 36. So I watched 32 horror movies in the month. This is going to be my second highest behind 2019, where I did 45. And then it looks like the lowest I've ever done would have been 2018 at 22. And then last year I did 29. That's been kind of the theme usually running there. So then the 13 new horror films that I watched is actually going to be the second to last year, where I had 14. And then the lowest ever would have been back in 2020 or like 2021, where I did 5. And then kind of I will run through how that kind of compares to everything there, but I just wanted to give that so far. Now, the 33 technically horror movies that I watched in the month are going to, 32 is actually correct, sorry. So it's going to be Until Dawn, Ice Cream Man, Super Happy Fun Clown, Somnium, It's Coming, The Surrender, Dante's Inferno from 1935, Habit from 1995, the documentary His Name Was Jason, 30 Years of Friday the 13th, The Conjuring Last Rites, A Mother's Embrace, The Demoness, The Long Walk, Dewey Shaw. I also watched The Jungle Captive from 1945 twice, The House in Between, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, The Mangler, The Drowned, The Draft, 28 Years Later, Him, Dead of Night 1945, Children of the Corn 3, Urban Harvest, A Dark Song, Coyotes, Hole, Good Boy, The Helm, Zombies on Broadway, and Hell House LLC. So then I have 9 countries represented. Those are going to be United States, Hungary, Canada, United Kingdom, Brazil, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Ireland, and Slovenia. So then the 2025 watches I have in order are going to be Until Dawn, Super Happy Fun Clown, Somnium, The Conjuring Last Rites, A Mother's Embrace, The Demoness, The Long Walk, The Drowned, The Draft, Him, Coyotes, Good Boy, and The Hem. So then the oldest watches that I have here are it's actually going to be Dante's Inferno from 1935, and the average year is 2006. So this is actually tied for my highest at 2021. We had the same exact year. Last year was 2005. The earliest would have been 1994 for 2019. And then my average across the board for all of September's is going to be 2000. And I actually should say I've watched 70 new releases in the month of September's, 236 horror movies, and 282 total films. So then the highest rated is on another podcast, probably going to give it away, but I gave that one a 10. The lowest rated, I have a tie between Ice Cream Man, The Conjuring Last Rites, The Demoness, The House in Between, The Hem, and another on this episode are all going to be 6s. My average rating, though, is 7.2, which is actually kind of on the lower end, actually, it looks like. Last year I had a 6.9. Nice. That would have been the lowest by far. The highest was 2021 at an 8.0, and so I'm at a 7.4 overall, as this year is helping to bring that down. So then the only thing that's on a different feed is going to be A Dark Song. That was on the Average Reviews podcast. That's actually going to be coming out later in October, so obviously later this month here. And then let's start doing my 2025 watches here. I have 89 right now, which if I was going to keep on pace to get to 100, I'd be at 74.7. So I'm actually going to break 100 in the month of October here, just because I'm going to Nightmares Film Festival. So I've actually watched more horror films than I did in 2018 and 2020, as well as 2021. I'm actually very close to what I did in 2022. I'm wondering if I'm going to break my 127 that I did last year. So then horror films, I've watched 284. I'm ahead of the pace to get to 365, as I should be at 273.6. And then this one right now, I've actually not watched it more than I have in any other time, but rapidly approaching all of those. I've watched actually 750 new releases. I've watched 2,870 horror films since I started keeping track. And then for total films, I've watched 349. If I was going to get to 500, I need to be at 375.3. Probably not going to make that one. Definitely doing a pretty good job there. I've watched 3,569 nice films since I started keeping track of everything there. And actually kind of looking at it, Across my new horror films, I usually average about 93.8 every year. I usually get about 358.8 horror films and 446.1 films overall. So then my average rating, I'm at a 1999. The average across every year is going to be 1998, so I'm obviously trying to bring that up now. Usually I kind of hover between those. The lowest would have been 2023 at 1996. The highest ever was 2018 at 2000. And then my average rating right now is at a 7 for this year. I'm at a 7.3 overall for everything. So this so far is still my lowest I've ever done. The highest would have been 2019 at 7.6. Last year I was at 7.1, so I'm hovering around there. I am bringing that average down. So percentage of horror, though, this year I'm at 81.38, kind of see what October will do here. Overall, I'm at an 80.26 for everything that I do watch, which is, I'm actually bringing that back up. What's really kind of the outlier here is 2018 and 2022, I watched 72.07 and 73.76, respectively. The highest ever was in 2019 at 86.87, and then last year I was at 82.71. Kind of curious to see how that is going to end up for me, in the end. So then just running through real quick, my most seen actor, Johnny Depp, 20 films because of my other podcast, Depp Dive, a deeper look at Johnny's feature filmography that's presented by Journey with a Cinephile. And then number 2 is Bela Lugosi at 9 films. Boris Karloff is tied for third at 6 with Helena Bonham Carter. Coming in at 5th position with 5 films, Christopher Lee, and then Jeffrey Rush is 6th with 4 films, and then tied for 7th with 3 is John Carradine, Lynn Acton McPherson, Libby Higgins, Justina Armstead, Madison Pollins, Timothy Spall, Haley Steinfeld, Philip Filmar, Bill Nighy, Alfred Molina, Valerie Hobson, Paul Whitehouse, Tony Todd, Jason Brooks, Robert Englund, Lily Taylor, Stephen Root, and Giovanni Ribisi. So then most seen director is Seth Breedlove at 8 films, which is something I'm going to be coming up here in October, or actually later on this episode. Tim Burton at 5th or 2nd with 5 films. Jeff Herberger and Gore Verbinski have 4 films, tied for 3rd. And then coming in the 6th positions, William Butler with 3 films. And then tied for 6th with 2 is going to be Thomas Edward Seymour, Zach Lipopitsky, Frank Henenlotter, J.R. Brookwalter, Flying Lotus, Stuart Walker, Kiyoshi Kurosawa, Wes Craven, and Stephen Cognetti. So that's all I have here then for this intro, as well as my monthly review. So let me go ahead and get you over to a very brief break before I get over to those mini reviews. And I hope you enjoy coming on this journey with me. I have a great thing here that I wanted to go ahead and give you an offer for, since it fell into my lap, and wanted to go ahead and share it with you. I have been given a promo code here for shimmerwoodbeverages.com. These are CBD infused seltzers that are award winning. They have been twice recognized by Forbes as the #1 CBD beverage in the United States and the best lower potency option out there. It blends full spectrum CBD with local Maine fruits and cocktail bitters for bold flavors, crafted without added sugars, caffeine, or artificial ingredients, which, if you know me, that is something that I prefer because, I get enough of the caffeine and I'm trying to get away from sugars. So it's designed for relaxation without intoxicating effects, perfect straight from the can or a refreshing cocktail or mocktail base, depending on what you're looking for there. This has unique flavors like Raz Lime, Chai Cherry, Ginger Orange, and Just Hemp. Now, Simmerwood offers a health-conscious alternative to sugary sodas or alcohol, made to revive a calm, clear focus for natural stress relief. Each can contains 5 milligrams of full-spectrum CBD for a balancing, calming effect. So this one here is at, like I said, shimmerwood.com, and my promo code here for you listeners is actually you get 30% off of if you use my code, and this is, like I said, a great deal if you can go ahead and you want to do that, and my code is going to be Cinephile1. So if you want to check out more of the information or check out their site, there will be links in the show notes for you to check that out there.
I'm Dean, I'm the dad.
I'm Laura, I'm the mom.
And I'm Arthur, I'm the son.
And together we are
Family Plot.
Plot Podcast is the best history podcast that we can make.
Like intellectual pancakes for the soul.
I've been called the cool dad you want to take a road trip with and learn about history from.
One of our listeners said listening to me was like Mom reading you a bedtime story full of cool history, and I am here for it.
And one of our reviewers called me the snarky brother they wish they had.
So join us to learn some cool stuff,
to hear some fun banter and wild tangents.
And we are unabashedly LGBTQ friendly and trans positive and supportive.
And remember,
when you listen,
you're our family.
So join us and occasionally some very cool guests
for the Family Plot Podcast.
Available wherever you get your podcasts.
And for my first mini review here is going to be The Hem from 2025. This is written and directed by Tyler Russell. This is starring Judd Lormond, George Hardy, and Jenny Robbins, as well as I'm going to give credit here to Rani Elowirdi and Savannah Ray Collins. This is a horror film that's from the United States. Now, it's not able to be rated yet on IMDb, and I would say over about a 3-star to a 3.5-star movie over on Letterboxd, with a synopsis being: a documentary crew investigates a haunted church on the verge of collapse with one condition: they must be out before dark. So I got a chance to see this one thanks to joining the Dreadcast. Actually, Russell joined the cast with us, and we had the chance to talk to him, do a little bit of an interview over there, and so I got to screen his new film. So I wanted to be prepared, so I obviously gave it a watch, and it also adds independent films to my end-of-year watch list. Other than knowing that information, I did try to come into this one as blind as possible, just knowing that it was found footage. So where I'm going to start is that it's a smart way that this was made. What I haven't included here is that this is shot. Well, I've already actually said it in the other thing. I incorporated that in, but it makes sense to, kind of do this because you don't need a lot of money by going found footage. This also takes place in an abandoned church, which you don't need a lot of characters either there. So this feels real since the documentary crew is also working with a low budget. It makes for some good sets within their means. And actually, Russell was talking about how he randomly was at this place, or I think he goes here regularly, and then he got shown around and realized he had the opportunity to make it here, which is very cool. So this doesn't necessarily work for me, as it does feel a little bit generic, and it does sound like it's kind of rushed, and that could be part of it. But I do love this idea of this dressmaker and her spirit wearing one for like her outfits is creepy, and then there's all these other extra ones as well. I'm going to give credit here, though. They used the full frame. There were times that I noticed something in the background, so I wanted to give credit for that. And I'll just finish up discussing the filmmaking aspects as well. I like the found footage for the most part. I think the cinematography and framing feel real. It does look like they went practical with the effects, so I give credit there. And what they do with the sound design also helps the atmosphere. And I also feel like there's a good reason as to why they're filming it. It's so dark in here, they're using it as a light source. So I want to circle back to the story and say that I did get slightly confused. In order to get to this section of the building, there is a shuttered door. It slams shut and they can't get out. What confused me is that it does seem like some of the party is on one side and the other people are on the other. I wasn't necessarily sure which side was which for some people. I think this could be on my fault here too. Not a huge gripe, because I just kind of roll with what's happening. The other thing is that we have these two police officers. I know that one, Monty, who is George Hardy, who is of Troll 2 fame, he is bothered by these events. What happens at the end, though, it doesn't make complete sense to me. I do acknowledge that I might have missed something and would probably need to revisit this one. So I'll let them to be the acting performances. What I'll say here is that no one is great, but they don't need to be. They need to feel real, and I think they do. I like Robbins, Elowirdi, and Collins as this documentary crew. It is interesting that Gabby becomes determined to see all the rooms and floors, where Anne gets terrified because she's just a PA, where Gabby is the main one doing the interviewing, and then Micah is the actual cameraman. They also add an element here to kind of know that Micah has a family, so it raised tension for me. Then we also here have Torrin Davis, who plays Hudson. He is a jerk who's a beer tour guide. He actually shows up late and then pretty much cuts their time short, even though he's getting paid. I also don't mind Lormond and Hardy, as the acting, fits for what was needed. In conclusion, this is a found footage film that effectively leverages its low budget constraints to create a believable, tense atmosphere within a haunted church setting. While the narrative occasionally veers into generic territory, and some plot points might cause some minor confusion, the strong practical effects, sound design, and authentic performances from the cast elevate the experience. Despite minor narrative fumbles, the film successfully delivers a creepy and engaging independent horror experience. So my rating here for The Hem, which I believe is actually going to be coming out here soon for streaming, is going to be a 6 out of 10. And then from one found footage film to another be Hell House LLC from 2015. This is written and directed by Stephen Cognetti. This stars Gore Abrams, Alice Balke, and Danny Bellini. This is a found footage horror mystery film that is from the United States. It is currently sitting on a 6.4 on IMDb and a 3.1 on Letterboxd, with our synopsis being 5 years after an unexplained malfunction caused the death of 15 tourgoers and staff on the opening night of a Halloween haunted house tour, a documentary crew travels back to the scene of the tragedy to find out what really happened. So this is one that I originally found out thanks to podcasts. Actually, I might have heard about it even before getting into podcasts, but that ended up being one of the reasons that I ended up checking it out. So being found footage intrigued me. Other than that information, I came to this one blind originally, so I'm now giving it a second watch as a Voyage to the Fives. I waited for October since this featured a haunt for Halloween. This is the second watch. As well, I did was the director's cut, where the first time I just watched the original version. So where I'm going to start is that this doesn't have the deepest story, but it's more about the atmosphere and how creepy the setting is, as well as the scary things that they experience. Not to play my hand too much, but I like what this does. It does certain things that make me feel uneasy, so I have to give credit there for that. Let's then tackle what could turn most people off, is that this is, being filmed in the style of found footage. It works for me as there's a reason for the camera to be filming all the time. We have this character of Alex, who's portrayed by Bellini, who uses this stuff for like promotional videos, as well as the next year, to not duplicate things, to keep it fresh. There are moments where I think it gets a little bit shaky, which I'm not always a fan of. I do think we have a great job here at having things in the background, so it makes me feel uneasy as we're looking all over the frame. It's a great way to keep the viewer engaged. So this haunted house film cleverly blurs the line between a genuine haunting and human interference, creating almost like a meta-narrative about a haunt that might be real. Subtle backstory enriches the plot with the town's name of Abaddon, a demon who is supposedly guarding the gates of hell. Fitting for Hell House LLC's arrival. Rumors of a cult operating in the abandoned hotel further explain its unsettling history and current events. I think this is an interesting concept of the nature of fear through the lens of real and artificial, or I guess real versus artificial. The story also explores like ambition, greed, and capitalism versus safety. The company's financial investment makes failure detrimental, but supernatural elements complicate the crew's disbelief. A crew member's disappearance, a reoccurring issue, enhances the theme of unreliability, with like the reality and perception, effectively utilized through found footage. As a fan of well executed in this style, I appreciate the filmmaking aspects, which utilizes the camera as a light source with effective cinematography and framing. The fact that I'm engaged, searching the frame adds something. The practical effects and creepy, potentially moving props enhance realism and contribute to my unease. The film also effectively uses ambient noise and diegetic music. So I also appreciate the amateur acting in these type of movies, as it enhances the found footage aesthetic. Abrams was good, often humorous, while Belkey's inquisitive portrayal, through even though a little bit over the top, made sense ultimately. And then I'd also give credit here to Ryan, Jennifer Jones, and Adam Schneider, as they also gave interesting performances. The rest of the cast was adequate, with special mention here of Lauren A. Kennedy's attire in the basement scene. That's something there. I also want to give credit here to the person who is in the creepy clown. That is terrifying. So in conclusion, this stands out as a compelling found footage horror film while effectively building atmosphere and unease. A cleverly blurring of reality and supernatural coupled with strong filmmaking choices, while effective cinematography and practical effects create a genuinely unsettling experience. While the story itself isn't overly complex, the film's strength lies in its ability to engage the viewer and deliver a memorable Halloween-themed scare. So my rating here for Hell House LLC actually stayed the same for me, as I'm coming in at an 8.5 out of 10. Then up next is going to be a screener of Scurry from 2024, getting its wide release here this year. This is directed by Luke Spark, and then this is written by Tom Evans. It stars Jamie Costa, Emilia, and Peter O'Halloran. This is a horror thriller film that is from Australia. It is currently sitting on a 7.5 on IMDb, and not enough ratings on Letterboxd, but I would say between a 2 and a 3-star movie over there, with the synopsis being two strangers who find themselves trapped underground when the city is attacked by a monstrous threat. Badly injured with limited resources, they must navigate a treacherous, narrowing tunnel in hopes of finding an exit. So this is one I got a chance to see thanks to Justin Cook when he sent over a press release. Now, seeing that the buzzwords in it intrigued me, so I agreed. So it's also helped with rounding out my end of year list, like I always like to say here, with independent titles. It also helped when a buddy of mine talked about this on the Dread broadcast. Other than that limited information, I came into this one blind, and that's going to be Aaron from Aaron's Movies 8587, and I also believe it's the A&B podcast. I think it might be Horror Podcast. If I mispronounce your podcast, man, I do apologize. But anyways, so what we have here is, I'll start with this. I got vibes of Cloverfield and the elements of like the tunnel. While not found footage, Mark uses a camera for light and night vision underground that he had found. A clever solution given the lack of light. They even find another person, there's like a flashlight. So the film maintains a claustrophobic yet dynamic feel with continuous obstacles. There's always the threat that the tunnel will collapse as an element of it. So there's another aspect here that I want to explore, and it's interesting to show that this major event happens and isolating two characters like we do. I won't spoil things, but we know that Mark, who is portrayed by Costa, got down here due to falling into a hole where the creatures escaped. He thought that it was an earthquake that caused this. Our other character would seem that she was pulled under and left by one of them. It's a good touch to set the stage, then show that the other two characters as they survive. So she is played by Emilia. And I like here that there's not a lot of trust between them. And since they just met, that causes friction. They ultimately need each other if they're going to make it out of this as well. So I then want to go back to Cloverfield. Another comparison here is that we jump right into the invasion. Our characters don't know anything about this monster or these monsters. I do love that as we learn what happens, that there's a scary element since we don't know what they're up against or what it's capable of. Much like our characters, then trapping them under the ground is also terrifying. This helps to build an atmosphere easily. So where I'm going to go next would be the filmmaking. This effectively conveys its one-shot nature and claustrophobic underground setting through cinematography and framing, with screen darkening effectively to hide cuts. The monster's appearance, a blend of practical and CGI effects, is something I praise despite somewhat noticeable computer-generated moments. As they are fictional, it provides leeway. Diegetic sound also enhances the atmosphere. All that is left then would be acting performances. In essence, this is a two-person show featuring Costa and Amalia. Costa portrays a man fighting to reunite with his family, where Amalia appears initially helpless due to a leg injury. The character's fluid shifts between protagonist and potential villain roles are intriguing, raising questions about the veracity of their backstories. Supporting characters include people at the beginning and soldiers of the climax. The acting is consistently fitting. So in conclusion, this is a masterfully uses a one-shot aesthetic and claustrophobic setting to deliver a tense creature feature experience reminiscent of Cloverfield and the Tunnel. The film excels in its mysterious monster reveal and the dynamic, untrusting relationship between our two leads, who are portrayed by Costa and Emilia, who carry the narrative with strong performances. Despite minor CGI imperfections, the blend of practical effects, diegetic sound, and clever cinematography creates an immersive and terrifying journey, providing a solid independent entry for genre fans. So my rating here then for Scurry is going to be a 7 out of 10. And then I also got to check out The Man Who Laughs from 1928. So this is directed by Paul Lenny, and then this is from the novel by Victor Hugo of L'Homme Quarit. Then the adaptation was done by J. Grubb Alexander. The titles were done by Walter Anthony, and then we have some uncredited writers here of May McLean, Marion Ward, and Charles E. Whitaker. So this is starring Mary Philbin, Conrad Viet, and Julius Molnar. This is actually a very early Universal film, so this is from the United States. It is currently psychological drama, tragic romance, horror, mystery, romance, thriller is the different things that we have here for the genres and subgenres for it. And as I was saying, this is currently sitting on a 7.6 on IMDb and a 3.9 on Letterboxd, for our synopsis being: when a proud noble refuses to kiss the hand of a despotic King James II in 1690, he is cruelly executed and his son surgically disfigured. So King James is portrayed by Sam DeGrassi, and this is one that had been on my list for some time. It is one that was considered one of the better films from 1920s. What I didn't realize until settling in to watch this is that this is an early Universal film. Another piece of trivia is that this inspired the creation of the Batman villain, the Joker. So this was the next film that was from my Letterboxd 250 top horror films that I hadn't seen. So I've seen most of them on there. There's just certain ones that I haven't as of yet, and it's also doubling down as an October Movie Challenge film. So where I'm going to then leave my recap and everything is that this is horror in a loose way. I'm still going to include it in my research, but it's more of a psychological drama that goes into a tragic romance. There are darker elements here when it comes to our lead character of Gwynplaine, who is portrayed by Viet. And while watching him, it made me think of the joke about Pagliacci. I think that's how you say that clown's name. The depression that comes with being the one that is always bringing joy to others. Gwynplaine is popular, but he's always laughed at. This has destroyed his self-esteem despite his success. So sticking with his lead character, I think Viet does an excellent job. How they did him up for his smile is so eerie. Credit to that as well. Gwynplaine has an interesting predicament. He's in love with Dia, who is a blind. He actually saved her as a baby when he was like a 10-year-old boy, and then they've grown up together. She's in love with him. He's in love with her. That woman is played by Philbin. And she, like I said, they're in love with each other, but she has never seen his face, so he doesn't feel that she can love him. Then we have this Duchess, Josina, portrayed by Olga Bakalanova. She comes to his show, and she doesn't laugh at him. She might have fallen in love out of pity, but when she shows interest, it sparks that maybe Dia truly loves him because somebody sees his face and they love him as well. So his mental state is so broken that it's something that spoke to me here. It's sad and beautiful at the same time. Let's then look at the overarching story as well. We are seeing the corruption of an oligarchy. It starts with King James II and his court jester, who is very cruel, of Barkilphedro, portrayed by Brandon Hurst. They punish Lord Clancharlie, who is the father to Gwynplaine, in the most horrific way possible. It isn't even the torture, but the maiming of his son and subjecting him to this lifelong scar that really kind of stuck with the father as he passed away. Gwynplaine makes the most of it, but we know that he's mentally broken. So then we also have Queen Anne, who's portrayed by Josephine Crowell. Isn't much better when she takes power. Part of it is that we still have Barkilphedro around, plus England's just a playground for Josina and anyone in power, and I do love this commentary. That should be enough for the story. Let's go over to the acting performances. Viet excels with body language and facial expressions, notably his sad, permanent smile. Philbin plays a good, naive, blind woman who loves Gwynplaine, though he rejects himself. Then we have also here, I want to give credit to, is Cesare Gravina, who plays Ursus. He is the one who actually helps raise Dia and Gwynplaine, and then they actually work together for like the plays they put on and everything like that. I think he portrays this man who adopts these two and then does a really good job at kind of raising them as like a surrogate father. I'll also give credit here to Julius Molnar, who plays the boy version of Gwynplaine. Then we also have Bakalanova, Hurst, Degrassi, Crowell, and then somebody else I haven't even brought up yet is this Romani surgeon who actually maims Gwynplaine of Dr. Harquanoni, portrayed by George Segman. I think they're all portray villains well to a different degree, that last grouping there. The acting here is solid across the board. I also thought there to be filmmaking aspects. The film effectively brings this era to life through authentic costumes and sets. Despite technological limitations, the cinematography and framing are strong for its time. The stage effects, practically those showing characters looking out, are ahead of its time. Gwynplaine's permanent smile is effectively creepy and sad. The music in this version I saw greatly enhanced my viewing experience as well. So in conclusion, this is a powerful and poignant film standing out as a significant work from the 1920s. While not strictly horror, its psychological depth, tragic romance, and commentary on societal corruption resonate deeply. The outstanding performances, particularly from Viet, combined with excellent filmmaking for this era, create a memorable and emotional, impactful experience. There is a lasting legacy, even inspiring the iconic Joker, is well-deserved, making it a must-see for fans of classic cinema and thought-provoking drama. So my rating here for The Man Who Laughs, I'm actually giving this one an 8.5 out of 10 for this first watch. Then my last feature here before I jump over to covering a doc is going to be Clown in a Cornfield. This is from 2025, directed by Eli Craig, who also helped write this with Carter Blanchard, and this is from the novel written by Adam Cesare. So this stars Katie Douglas, Aaron Abrams, and Carson McCormick. This is a dark comedy, slasher, teen, horror, mystery thriller film that is a co-production between the United States, Luxembourg, United Kingdom, and Canada. This is currently sitting on a 5.6 on IMDb and a 2.6 on Letterboxd, for a synopsis being: a fading Midwestern town in which Frendo the Clown, a symbol of bygone success, reemerges as a terrifying scourge. So this one here, if you'd like to hear a featured review, is going to be episode 294, which was Voyage to the Fives, number 11. I had this paired up with The Dead Speak, and not the greatest double feature over there, but, it is what it is. So if you would like to hear more, I would go over there. So this one here, I've already kind of given that synopsis, but a little bit more is that this is a fading Midwestern town of Kettle Springs, and this opens in 1991, where we have a couple being killed in a cornfield by a clown, and then we jump to present day. So we are following Quinn Maybrook, portrayed by Douglas, and her father of Dr. Glenn, portrayed by Abrams. They move to Kettle Springs after the death of Quinn's mother. Dr. Glenn becomes the family doctor here in town, unable to continue in his emergency room due to his trauma. Quinn quickly befriends a group of popular but troublemaking teens led by Cole Hill, who's portrayed by McCormick. So his family founded the Bay Pin. I think it was his great-grandfather, so they founded the town. And his father, Arthur, is the mayor, portrayed by Kevin Durant. So the group is known for making these videos depicting Frendo as a scary figure, and they are blamed for burning down the local mill, which caused widespread job loss. So the teens soon become targets of the real killer clown, and Quinn finds herself drawn into an escalating danger. The film explores themes of generational conflict, small town dynamics, and the boy who cried wolf trope, as the teens' Frendo videos lead to disbelief when the actual murders begin. So we have some strong performances here, in my opinion. I thought Douglas does well as Quinn, and I thought Abrams as well as Dr. Glenn as her father. We have a solid here supporting cast for creating distinct characters. I also like the film's effective way of capturing a small town farm aesthetic, the use of practical effects and inventive kills with farm tools. The clown killer design is creepy. The story has some confusing elements regarding the town's secrets. I still find it to be a decent modern take on 1980 slashers, which I like some of them. This one, not great, and I don't think Pierce are necessarily going to love this one. I think it is what it is, and kind of just turn off your brain, roll with it, and kind of forget about it afterwards. So I end up staying pat here with a 7 out of 10 as my rating. Then I have a documentary I'm going to be covering here of The Lost Contact, UFOs After Wartime from 2025, directed by Seth Breedlove. It is starring Aaron Deese, Dewey Edwards, and Micah Hanks. So this is an adventure documentary history. And this one does not have a letterbox page yet, and I cannot rate it on IMDb, so I'm just going to jump in and say the synopsis: a decorated pilot dies pursuing a UFO. Was it an accident or a shoot-down? A kill by a flying saucer? Today, 77 years later, secrets and cover-up unravel in one of UFO history's most chilling and legendary cases. So this is one I got the chance to see thanks to Justin Cook when he reached out with a press release. Seeing the concept of this documentary intrigued me. It also made sense that this would be the new one from Breedlove and his Small Town Monsters crew. UFOs and aliens are an interesting concept, so seeing that these encounters that were back after World War II made me check this out for review. So what I'm going to say is that I do love these Breedlove documentaries in that they do well in setting the stage. We meet a few different experts who give their history as to how they got into investigating what they do. This then introduces us to the area that we're focusing, which is Franklin, Tennessee. Something interesting of note that gets explained is that World War II was interesting because of the technological advances that were made in a modern war. There were airplanes being used, which obviously revolutionized the war. What I didn't realize is that there were reports from both sides, like the Allies and the Axis military, about encounters with UFOs. There is even one such where both sides seem to attack a flying object together. That was something I was shocked to learn. So then what we have here is we really kind of focus on two encounters. We spend more time on the second, but it does bring up one with Ken Arnold going after a UFO. The other one is Thomas Mantell. He was a pilot in World War II, and then when he came home, he joined the newly formed Kentucky Air National Guard. He died in this incident, and his wife spent the rest of her life looking for answers. There does seem to be a logical explanation, but there's always that doubt. His grandsons Terry and Eric get interviewed to help fill in as well. What I will say is that I tend to do for these with small town monster docs, I love that they tend to just provide the facts and let the people that either experienced it or their families kind of tell their story. It doesn't try to influence the viewer in either direction. If anything, this Mantell UFO incident seems like it was more of a government cover-up. There is still that doubt that someone can see with information as it sits, though. Then to delve into that, I do think that the experts here are knowledgeable. I don't necessarily believe the supernatural angle, but I also don't have the facts to disprove anything either. There's some good heart to hear from the grandsons of Mantell. That made me tear up since they never got to meet him. And it also seems like their father might have struggled with substance abuse in the absence of his father being around. I mean, you can't necessarily fully blame it, so I'm kind of just going to digress there. And I will say then is that this is well made. The cinematography and framing were good. The interviews were professionally done. I do like incorporating of footage. And then we also get like CGI generated videos, which help to bring things to life that are being said. I find that to be a good touch since there isn't actual footage. In conclusion, this is another strong entry from Breedlove and Small Town Monsters. It effectively sets the stage, presenting intriguing historical accounts of UFO encounters during and after World War II, particularly focusing on the tragic Mantell incident. The documentary excels in providing factual information and allowing personal stories to unfold without pushing a specific agenda, although it hints at a government cover-up with knowledgeable experts, heartfelt interviews, and professional production quality, including effective cinematography and CGI. This offers a compelling and well-crafted look into one of UFO history's most enduring mysteries. So my rating here for Lost Contact, UFOs After Wartime, is going to be a 7 out of 10. And this will be hitting streaming here soon, so if you are interested, keep an eye out. So I'm going to be quite brief here and run through a bunch of these episodes of American Horror Story Delicate that I got to watch due to my son being ill, and it was something I could easily put on and not necessarily have to pay full attention to. But so the first episode is Multiply Thy Pain. This one is directed by Jessica Yu, and this one here is after multiple failed attempts at IVF. Actress Anna Victoria Alcott, who is portrayed by Emma Roberts, wants nothing more than to start a family. As the buzz around her recent film grows, she fears that something may be targeting her and her pursuit of motherhood. So kind of just see, like, I have some brief notes and I'm going to kind of just run through as I was saying here, and then as I go through each episode, because like I said, I did 7 of these here. We have this way to start off where Emma wakes up with a creepy person in bed, and she lives in the Furman building in New York City here, and Emma, I was actually going to say, is Anna in this. So the cops won't really send anybody. There's a weird pic of a zygote that is separated, and we learn that this is the image that they got from their doctor for the IVF stuff that they're doing here. Thought that was kind of interesting there, is that her husband is Dexter Harding, portrayed by Matt Chesery. I think it might be how you say his last name. If not, I do apologize. And also say Anna has a publicist who is Shai-Bin Corbin, portrayed by Kim Kardashian. And then the doctor she goes to see here is Dennis O'Hare, who is Dr. Andrew Hill. So we actually see that our main character of Anna is bleeding. So we go 1 week earlier and we get some kind of just weird kind of things. It's actually kind of funny. I have Rosemary's Baby vibes for this one, and that kind of comes full circle. And then we also should realize Anna is a former teen star. Kim is her publicist, like I said. Dexter had a deceased wife, so he's obviously he's a widower or a widow. His previous wife here was Adeline, who we'll end up seeing is portrayed by Annabelle Dexter Jones, and she's also playing another character here of an artist of Sonia Sawcross. And then Anna is just definitely worried that she's going to lose the baby. I thought this set the scene well. I gave that episode a 7 out of 10. And then the next one that we have here is going to be Rockabye Baby, and this is directed by the great Jennifer Lynch. So the synopsis here for this one is it's award season, and Anna is primed to be a major player in contention. After a frightening encounter convinces her that she's being followed, she begins to question who she can trust. So something I also should say here, this is actually based off a book, which I didn't realize until, kind of watching a couple of these episodes. So Haley Pfeiffer is the one who developed it for television and wrote it for television, but the book is Delicate Condition, done by Danielle Vega. So this episode is kind of interesting here, is that there's some meta approach here where we have Anna, portrayed by Emma Roberts. They say something about her being a Nepo baby, and it's kind of interesting because her father is obviously Eric Roberts, and she is the niece to Julia Roberts. So something else I have to include here is that she keeps losing time and forgetting things, so she's blacking out for long stretches. This episode I thought did some interesting things as well, where her and her husband end up going out to a house that his benefactor for his art studio is done by, what is her name? Talia Thompson, portrayed by Juliana Canfield. And they go out to her place, and then I actually hear Anna thinks that she has a miscarriage, and then it's kind of interesting because there is a nurse who is doing this exam on her, portrayed by Cara. I remember looking at her. I think it's Devane. I think that's probably how you say her last name. I know I looked it up earlier, but she is portraying Ivy Einenrich. But it kind of gets creepy here is that there is no nurse working there and whatnot, so that kind of makes everything more creepy. So this one I gave a 7 out of 10 to as well. And then the next up, episode 3, is When the Bow Breaks. Kind of going along with that song. Also directed by Jennifer Lynch. This one is Anna and Dex settle into their Hampton sanctuary. The comfort begins to fade. Her circle of trust is slowly shrinking, and doubt creeps in Anna's head. Could the evil be right under her nose? So this is kind of interesting things here, kind of playing with more like Rosemary's Baby. She thinks that there's this cult coming after her baby and doing everything there. Shibin comes, says there is no plot against her. Anna isn't so sure, as we see 2 people watching her with goats. So she also accuses Dex of having an affair with this artist, and then she maybe didn't have a miscarriage, doesn't necessarily know who she could trust. This one I gave a 7 out of 10 to as well. Then the next episode 4, is Vanishing Twin. We actually go all the way back to Europe in England, 1555. So Queen Mary gave up her firstborn, according to this, to have a long reign. Was it the devil? Was it a demon baby? That's kind of not necessarily explained, but then this one's kind of interesting because we get the Ashleys appear in this one, and they are portrayed by the ever so wonderful Billy Lord and Leslie Grossman. They're here to kind of help fix Anna's image because she has a little bit of a crisis here. She won an award and then threw up on stage, so everybody's kind of mocking her for it. And then there's this weird thing here with this dead raccoon that she sees, and she takes it and might be doing some weird things there with it. So this one I also gave a 7 out of 10 to. So then the next one, episode 5, is Preach. This one was directed by John J. Gray. Anna senses the dark presence coming close in on her, closer than ever. Miss Preacher reveals a piece of her past that she may not know about the truth that is happening to Anna and Dex. So this one takes place, it starts off in Manhattan, 1987. There is this designer. She also seemed to be working for the Ashleys, and Dr. Hill also kind of factors in here. So this one also then comes back to the present here. We actually learn a little bit that maybe Dexter's family might also be mixed up in things here. Thought that was kind of interesting. This Mavis Preacher is played by Julie White. She is somebody who was kind of ranting and raving at the clinic that is ran by Dr. Hill. This one I actually liked a little bit more. I gave this one a 7.5 out of 10. And then we actually kind of see things getting even more creepy with her past, and that is episode 6, opening night. We have Bradley Bucher is the writer, or is the director here. A glimpse in Anna's past might be why she craves motherhood, while Dex's his family life is dragged into the spotlight here. So this one starts then in White Plains, New York, 1988. So it actually is kind of interesting here. There is this house manager of the place that she's working at, Nicolette, who is portrayed by Michaela J. Rodriguez. she might be kind of factored in here a little bit more than we realize. We also get to see that Dexter's dad is a misogynist and a jerk, portrayed by Reed Birney. And then his mother is actually Virginia Harding, Deborah Monk, who she is claiming that he was doing satanic rituals that with her. And yeah, kind of things kind of play in here. And I kind of like what they're doing with some of this stuff. This episode fell a little bit short for me. I gave this one a 6.5 out of 10. And the last episode that I watched was 7, Ava Hestia. So this one's kind of interesting. Jennifer Lynch directed this one. Entrenched in her grapple of fame and motherhood, Anna may be involved in a cycle much bigger and older than she realizes. So this one here, we actually kind of see your Western Europe AD 42. This one actually kind of incorporates back in the Ivy character as well as Adeline and Sonia. I like what they're doing there. We actually see this woman giving birth alone in a barn, gives herself a C-section, and it's kind of interesting the name of those two babies there. So then we go to Brooklyn in 2013. So we're actually learning more about Adeline as well as Dexter while they were married. Adeline might be into a cult type stuff. And it also looks like that we see that maybe Virginia might not have been as wrong as we thought about things. Dexter actually knew that his deceased wife was pregnant, and he actually lied to Anna back in the earlier episodes. And then we also realize another character is part of this cult. I don't necessarily love some of this stuff here. Some of this stuff is actually, they don't hide it as well as they have in previous seasons, so that kind of made me where I'm enjoying the season. I just don't know if it's as strong as I was saying, but like I'm very kind of above average on most of it. So that's all I've gotten to finish so far, so that's all I'm going to do here then for mini reviews. Let me go ahead and get you over then to the trailer of my first featured review.
Mike, look. Those natives with the spears, they're hill natives. They're dangerous.
She's coming out of it, Doctor. Maybe you should give her another sedative.
No. I'm ready to give her the serum.
It seems a shame to make such a beautiful girl into a zombie.
She will be just as nice to look at. And if this formula works, her beauty will be preserved indefinitely. What's the matter with the dogs?
There may be someone in the grounds.
Everything is ready, and see who it is.
Yes, hurry.
Keep the girl quiet.
I'll have to tie you up.
And for my first featured review here is going to be Zombies on Broadway from 1945. This is directed by Gordon Douglas. It was written by Lawrence Kimball, and then we also have here the original story was done by Robert Faber and Charles Newman, and then Robert E. Kent did the adaptation. And then, so this is starring Wally Brown, Alan Carney, and Bela Lugosi, while also featuring here the likes of Anne Jeffrey, Sheldon Leonard, Frank Jenks, Russell Hopton, Joseph Vitale, Ian Wolfe, Louis Jean Hadet, Darby Jones, and then there's some uncredited stuff here by Rudolph Andrian, Dick Botellier, Robert Clark, Tom Coleman, Bess Flowers, Angela Gomez, and Robert Haynes. So this is a slapstick zombie horror comedy fantasy film that is from the United States. This is currently sitting on a 5.2 on IMDb and a 2.8 on Letterboxd, for our synopsis here being. two bumbling press agents must search for a zombie to fulfill a commitment to their ex-gangster boss's new nightclub or face the consequences. So this is one that I had figured out and found when I had bought a double-pack DVD. It featured the film You'll Find Out, which had Bela in it as well. So the title made me chuckle, and so now I'm working through a list of 1945 horror films. I was intrigued, so this is doubling here for also a horror challenge that features that I needed to watch films featuring zombies, as well as, being a voyage to the fives. So then what we're doing here is let's do some featured notes, and I'll start with our director of Douglas, who did 92 features. I've seen 3 now. He actually did They Call Me Mr. Tibbs, which isn't horror, but I rather enjoy that one with Sidney Poitier. So in genre, he did 3. I've seen 2. I've seen Them, so that giant ant movie. This is the director. And this, while not seeing Gildersleeve's Ghost. So then for the writing room, let's start with the actual writer of the screenplay, and that's Kimball, who did 33 movies. First of his that I've seen, only one he's done in horror. Then DeFaber, he helped come up with the story. He did this twice. First that I've seen, only one in genre. Then we have Newman, who helped write the story. This is his only credit, as it looked like he normally was a musician, where he had 64 credits there. Then we have Kent, who gets credit for the adaptation. It looks like he did this for 17 times. First that I've seen. Has one other one in genre with The Werewolf from 1956. Then to the cast, we'll start with Brown, who was in 37 films, and I've seen 3. Not horror, he was in Hitchcock's Notorious. He did 2 in genre. Seen both now with this and The Seventh Victim. Though then his co-star of Carney was in 31 works, first of his that I've seen, only one in genre. And last is going to be Lugosi. I've gone over him quite regularly as he's one of my most seen actors. I actually meant to pull up what his position was, so I'm going to see if I can do that here in real time. But I'll go ahead and just kind of say that he was in 152 motion pictures. I've seen 44 for 32%. In horror, he did 68, and I've now seen 40 for 58%. The top 3 of his that are horror that I haven't seen yet are Plan 9 from Outer Space, Extraordinary Tales, and The Black Sleep. He is my 4th most seen actor of all time at 39 films, trailing behind Johnny Depp, Samuel L. Jackson, and Christopher Lee. So then, let's jump into this movie here, and what we're getting is that we start this in New York City. A former gangster who is now trying to open up a nightclub, the Zombie Hut. This is Caribbean themed. The gangster is Ace Miller, portrayed by Leonard. So part of his shtick is he believed that Jerry Miles, who's portrayed by Brown, and Mike Stranger, portrayed by Carney, could get him a real zombie. Their plan is just to have a guy who's an actor of Sam pretend. The problem is that they call in a radio personality to help promote this place. That's Douglas Walker, portrayed by Hedit. He doesn't like Ace, and he knows who Sam is, so that puts a hole in their plan. Ace won't be ruined, so he demands that the duo find a real zombie. This takes him to the Natural History Museum, where they meet Professor Hopkins, portrayed by Wolf. He directs them to an island in the Caribbean of San Sebastian, the only place in the world where there are zombies, in this world of the film. He also gives them the name of his colleague of Dr. Paul Renaud, portrayed by Lugosi, who is an expert. So they make their way there, learn that their ship that brought them is... That's how they get there. It's going to be leaving soon, so if they miss it, they're going to be stuck on this island until it returns, and it doesn't come back very often. They then meet a man of Joseph, portrayed by Vitali, who thinks he can help. The duo also get into a local nightclub to ask about zombies. They scare off some of the workers and patrons alike, but they do catch the attention of a performer of Jean Ladance, portrayed by Jeffries. She's willing to take them deeper onto the island where the voodoo rituals are done. We then see Dr. Renaud as he is trying to make a zombie with science. He can't understand why the locals are able to, as he's able to make zombies, but the problem is that he can't keep them in this state. He is aided by Joseph, and then Dr. Renaud is also using a zombie that he stole to help his research of Kalalaga, portrayed by Jones. They send him out looking for somebody to test his latest serum on. This ends up bringing Jerry, Mike, and Jean, who are unwilling test subjects. They'll need to get free before they're permanent slaves to this mad doctor. So that's really my recap introduction of the characters. What I'm going to start off is that Brown and Carney, I guess, were supposed to be RKO's answer to, like, Abbott and Costello. So they didn't take off, and they're mostly a forgotten duo. What I will say is that they are entertaining. Maybe not on the level of the more successful ones from Universal or like Laurel and Hardy. I'll also say that this shares similarities with the film I Walked with a Zombie. This is like using the same fictional island of San Sebastian. Jones is reprising his role as a zombie, and then we also have Sir Lancelot as a calypso singer. So now that it's set up, let's kind of get into a little bit more of what we have going. I like the idea of this gangster trying to go legit. Things are up against him with getting it off the ground, so he reverts to his old ways. He has 2 goons that kind of do his dirty work of Gus, portrayed by Jenks, and Benny by Hopton. Now, they strong-arm our main duo into going to this island. It has built-in tension that they either do as they're told or they bring back a zombie to this club or be killed. We then see they might not survive this ordeal on the island as well, though. Now, shifting to look at this island, I do think it is well in establishing it when Jerry and Mike arrive. Sir Lancelot sets the tone with his great song, and then we see that there are criminals all around. Then bringing up zombies at the bar gets everybody spooked, and then they go out into the brush with Gene. Now, the atmosphere is creepy. The drums that we hear also add to that. This is played for laughs, though, as they're being stalked by Kalalaga. There's a slight issue that I have with the look of the zombies. I understand why they're doing it. It's a easy way just to show that somebody is under the influence of either the ritual or this serum. Let's then finish out with the filmmaking aspects. This effectively portrays New York's gritty atmosphere alongside a tropical island setting, which proves dangerous for the protagonists, both of them, which I love that duality. Cinematography and framing are standard for the era, capturing key locations like the nightclub, bar, and Dr. Renault's home. Minimal effects are used primarily to make the zombies' eyes bulge, a simple yet effective visual cue for their transformation, which I found amusing. Sir Lancelot's song and voodoo drums are enjoyable elements. Well, that's all then left them to be the acting performances before I do some trivia. Brown and Carney make for a good duo. They play well off each other. It's a shame that their act didn't take off like others did. Lugosi is good as his mad scientist. He excels in this role, even if he doesn't get much to work with in this one. Jeffries works as this woman who joins our main duo. Leonard, Jenks, and Hopton are all good as the gangsters. Wolf is quirky. Vitali works as Dr. Renault's henchman. And Jones is great as Calaga. Also, I'll give credit here once again to Sir Lancelot and the rest of the cast for running this out for what was needed. So then the trivia that I found on this one here, the jungle scenes were filmed on sets used for RKO's Tarzan series. Lancelot and Jones virtually repeated the same roles they did in RKO's very successful 1943 venture, I Walked with a Zombie, like I said. Both are set in the same fictional island of San Sebastian. Brown and Carney, who received top billing, were RKO's answer to Universal's top box office draw of Abbott and Costello, while Bud and Lou enjoyed long prosperous careers in film, TV, radio, all that. Brown and Carney were barely remembered today. Now, Lugosi and Wolf had worked together 10 years prior in The Raven from 1935. They share no scenes together here, and 18 years later, Carney and Stewart both appeared in It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, likewise sharing no scenes together. Actor Hopton, who played Benny, died on April 7th, 1945, less than a month before this actually got released. Lugosi does not appear until exactly 20 minutes in. Once again, he plays a mad scientist. To save money on this low-budget picture, RKO reused some sets from I Walked with a Zombie. That also makes sense. Second zombie movie for Lugosi is he previously played a zombie master in the excellent independent feature White Zombie from 1932. So then in conclusion, this is an interesting and entertaining horror comedy that leverages the comedic talents of Brown and Carney, even if they didn't achieve widespread fame. The film successfully blends a gangster plotline with a supernatural quest, creating a fun narrative with surprisingly effective island atmosphere. While the zombie effects are minimal, they serve their purpose, and Lugosi delivers a solid performance as a mad doctor. Despite some minor flaws, this provides an enjoyable viewing experience, especially for fans of classic horror and comedic duos. So my rating, though, for this one is going to be a 6 out of 10. Not going to do a spoiler section. Don't necessarily think I need to do anything there, so let me go ahead and get you over to the trailer of my second featured review.
Look who's here.
I guess I'm next. I should never have come here.
And for my second featured review here is going to be Good Boy. This is from 2025. This is directed by Ben Leonberg, who also co-wrote this with Alex Cannon. This stars Indy, Shane Jessen, and Ariel Friedman, while also featuring here Larry Fessenden, Stuart Rundin, Hunter Goetz, Anya Krawcheck, and Max. So this is a comedy horror thriller film that is from the United States. This is currently sitting on a 6.5 on IMDb and a 3.3 on Letterboxd, or a synopsis being: a loyal dog moves to a rural family home with his owner, only to discover supernatural forces lurking in the shadows. As dark entities threaten his human companion, the brave pup must fight to protect the one he loves the most. So this is a film that I learned about some buzz ahead of actually knowing what it was truly about. Then I caught the trailer, or at least part of it, at the Gateway Film Center. Now, I normally would wait to see a movie like this in the theater, but life seems to be getting in the way at times. So when a screener was offered, I was, stoked to be able to go ahead and check this one out. And this is also going to be my 2025 horror film for the week. As you can tell, this is a featured review that I'm doing here. But then let's do some featured notes, and I'll start with our director of Leonberg. This is his feature film debut, but he does have one short as well. Then as a writer, he has the same 2 credits. His co-writer of Canon, this is their feature film debut. He has written 3 shorts, though. Now, since the dog is our star here, let's go ahead and just look at Indy. This is their feature film debut. Then over to the owner of this film, Jensen. This also looks to be their feature film debut. So then let's end this out here with somebody who this is not their feature film debut, and that's going to be the legend in indie film scene of Larry Fessenden. He's been in 93 movies and 17 shorts. I've seen 22 of his works. 19 of those are in genre, with the top 3 being Maxine, The Dead Don't Die, and You're Next. Now, the top 3 that I haven't seen of his yet are Bringing Out the Dead, We Are What We Are, and The Spine of Night. But then, let's go ahead and jump into this movie here, and we start in a dark room. In it is Indy, obviously playing themselves, and they are with their owner of Todd, portrayed by Jensen. Something is off, and we see the phone keeps ringing. The person calling is Vera, who's portrayed by Friedman. So she is the sister to Todd, and we see her burst into this room. Todd has a medical condition, and he's not taking care of it. He also seems like he could be a little bit of mental illness there, being tired of doing different things to stay on top of it. She scolds him and also gives help. So it is from here that we get a montage of Todd, getting Indy when he was a puppy. There have been some great times together, and this includes being with Vera. We then see that Todd takes a trip with his dog. They are going out to their grandfather's house. Todd calls Vera as he can't find the key to the gate. She questions if he should be there or not. He then finds what he's looking for, allowing them to get past this gate. Now then, let's put out here that the grandfather is portrayed by Fessenden. We see him through all these home movies as he's passed away. The longer things go on, he might have had a similar ailment to his grandson. He also had a dog of his own, a Bandit, portrayed by Max. Indy is uncomfortable about going in, so the dog seems to have a sense of presence here. He finds different things that could cause his experience, things from the past. There's also seems to be this dark entity residing in the house. Todd has changes that come over him as well, as his health starts to decline rapidly. So let's leave my recap and introduction of the characters. What I'm going to start is that this is an interesting premise for a film. It reminds me a bit of The Hills Have Eyes Part 2 for the fact that we're following a dog as our lead character. Now, that's not necessarily what we get for The Hills Have Eyes, but that older film, we do see flashbacks to events that the dog survived from the first film. So, kind of giving a dog having some flashbacks as he remembers things. And what we're getting here, though, in this respect, is that Indy will find a scarf that belonged to the other dog. He'll sniff it, and then he'll get a glimpse of things that have happened previously. It is a unique approach. I'm not entirely sure how effective it is, but what I won't take away from this is the dog and his performance. That was great. So we have a little bit more interesting things here to go into from this. Since we're following this dog, the dialogue that we hear from the characters becomes muffled. It can be jarring since there wasn't any subtitles on my screener. It was difficult to hear at times, but my setup to watch that could also be partially to blame there. This is one that I want to revisit in the theater or on a streaming service that has, subtitles with it. Again, it's an interesting approach to follow Indy through these events that are kind of happening around him. Now, shifting away from this wonderful pet, we have some interesting concepts at play here along with that. Not the most original idea, or at least how I'm interpreting it, but we have Todd, who is sick. If I had to guess, it's cancer, but I don't believe it officially gets confirmed. Then coupling that with him going out to his grandfather's house, who might have died from a similar ailment. There is then this supernatural entity haunting the house that Todd doesn't seem to notice. It almost comes across that whatever is poisoned to buy this place, it has fallen into disrepair. No one is living here, so there's that. I do like playing with this idea, though. That's some good stuff that they do with it there. So then the last element of the story I want to talk about would be familial bonds. You could see this through Indy, how much he loves Todd. This is reciprocated until Todd becomes more ill, and then we actually see him lash out at his dog, which kind of made me feel a little bit bad there. Oh, not a little bit, it made me feel bad. It is difficult to truly fault him though, because I've been probably mean to my cat at times when I'm not feeling the greatest, so there is that. So Vera also absolutely loves her brother. She wants him to get the proper help, and he's not ready for that, so that kind of butts heads there. There's also seems to be this bond between Todd and his grandfather. The latter had a dog of his own, and it seemed like he loved that dog very dearly as well. I do enjoy these connections as it's something that we can easily kind of put ourselves into. Let's then shift over to the filmmaking aspects. Despite my gripes with the difficulty to follow the dialogue, I do love the idea of seeing these events through the eyes of this animal. That means we get like lower angles, we stare at things which play with expectations. I think there's some missed opportunities here as well. The cinematography and framing though are good. They did seem to go mostly practical with the effects, which I'm always glad to see. I do think that the music and the sound design also help build the atmosphere. Even if I have my struggles with the following things that I've said, I'm thinking it could be more just incidental as well. All that's left then to be acting performances. I've already said that Indy was great here. I do like Jensen as Indy's owner. He made me mad when he gets mean towards his pet, but if you're dying like he is, I can also get it as well. Friedman works as his loving sister, doing what she can to help. Fessenden makes a great cameo in his role. I actually don't ever think we see him like necessarily live. I mean, obviously he's passed away in the world of the film, but I think it's all through like home videos and just pictures and then these like flashbacks. That Max and the rest of the cast rounded this out for what was needed on top of that as well. So then I have a little bit of trivia here that I was able to find on the IMDb page, and according to the director Leonberg, shooting took over 400 days over 3 years because, well, it is a dog actor. Every scene in this film features Indy or is in Indy's POV, which made this unique and challenging. Sound I thought I brought up there. Indy is actually the director Leonberg's own dog. Described by some critics as one of the most heartbreaking horror films of 2025. Yeah, I could kind of go along and see what they're getting at there. After the release of the first trailer online, searches spike for Does the Dog Die in Good Boy? So yeah, definitely people were kind of trying to figure out what happens there, and I'm not going to spoil anything from that point on. But then in conclusion, this presents a unique and interesting perspective on a supernatural horror story by largely following the events through the eyes of a loyal dog. While the muffled dialogue can be challenging, the film excels with its core concept of familial bonds and chilling deterioration of its human lead of Todd. The practical effects, strong cinematography, and the remarkable performance by Indy the dog contribute to an atmospheric experience. Despite some missed opportunities, the film delivers a compelling narrative, making it a noteworthy addition to the horror genre. So then for me here, I'm going to give Good Boy actually a 7 out of 10. I'm actually quite curious. I'm going to try to see if I can also catch this one in the theater. I might not be able to, but I will try to see if I can at least catch it a second time before the end of the year. So that's all I'm going to have here then for this one. I'm not going to do a spoiler section just because at the time of recording this film isn't even actually out in the theaters yet. So what I'm going to go ahead and do though is get you over to one last break before I close out the show. And I have a great offer here that I wanted to go ahead and extend to all you listeners out there for oldglory.com. This is a place where you can get over 300,000 items for music, sports, entertainment, and pop culture fans, featuring officially licensed merch from iconic bands and top sports teams. Discover your perfect fan gear and save with my exclusive discount. And that is going to be Cinephile 1. But here you get a 15% discount off of any product, and this is exclusive for something that I'm doing and for what has been offered to me. And I mean, this has things like artists here, Bob Marley, the Beatles, Grateful Dead, the Rolling Stones, Metallica, and more. We also have sports fans have stuff here for your favorite teams with official gear from the NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB, and NCAA, showcasing your team pride in style. And they even have some stuff here that celebrate, entertainment, TV shows, movies, lifestyle brands, and it means from quirky gifts to fan favorite apparel. There's something for everybody. With free standard shipping and same day order processing, Old Glory delivers fast and reliable service with every purchase. Whether shopping for yourself or looking for a perfect gift, Old Glory is your one-stop shop for iconic, high-quality merch that reflects your love for music and sports as well as like pop culture. And I mean, kind of just running ththrough some of this stuff. This is a family-owned superstore since 1969. They're known for their quality and customer service. You can get exclusive selection of graphic tees, hoodies, hats, and accessories. Represent your favorite sports team with official fan gear. Discover quirky gifts, like I was saying, and fun pop culture apparel. Perfect place to shop for, this type of stuff. And there's a vast selection of entertainment-themed products, including movies and TV shows if you're not necessarily into some of the other things. And enjoy reliable and fast service with Old Glory's commitment to customer satisfaction, the ultimate source for high-quality, licensed fan merchandise for all ages. Like I said, my promo code is going to be Cinephile1, all one word. So if you're kind of interested, go ahead and check out their website here in my show notes, as I'll have I actually have more details down there for you as well.
Pod Nation TV has you beamed up with Out of This World award-winning podcast, found exclusively on Pod Nation TV. Download Pod Nation TV for Roku and Fire TV. Pod Nation TV, Out of This World.
And welcome back. So if you'd like to send me any sort of feedback, anything you want read on the show, or any screener requests, anything like that, you can send those to journeywithacinephile@gmail.com. If you'd like to read any of my written reviews or see any of the old past podcast episodes, all of that is being stored over at Journey with a Cinephile. That is my blog, and that's going to be horrorreview.webnode.com. If you'd like to follow me and become friends on Facebook, it's going to be David Garrett Jr. is my name over on there. There's going to be a link in the show notes. And then if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, it's going to be Buckeye from Mish. And then if you'd like to follow my Letterboxd page where I have all of my reviews, whether that's going to be horror or non-horror, that's going to be David OSU is my name on that. Instagram and Threads, I'm David OSU87. Over on my personal Instagram page, you might see some of my family stuff every now and then whenever I remember to post something. My wife is much better at it than I am. But then if you'd like to follow the Journey with a Cinephile Instagram, that's going to be Journey with a Cinephile, all one word. And then also direct you, if you'd like, to the Discord channel. That's going to be the Nightclub Discord, but I have a page over there. And there's also some other great pages of other shows and them kind of messing around and everything like that. Do highly recommend if you want to go ahead and check that out. And then the last thing I'll actually say here, if you would like to listen to the show a day early, this is always going to be streaming over there on the PodNation TV app. So I will have, once again, a link in the show notes for that if that is something that you're interested in. So yeah, there's some great stuff here. There's some great shows on some of these other networks and stuff. I highly recommend checking them out. And for my next episode, as I was hoping to actually get everything kind of completed for it, just, have to do the watches and everything, but I wasn't able to just due to life, and, I love my son, so I needed to take care of him while he was ill and my wife being out of town. But I am going to be doing my top horror films from 1935. Don't normally like to do these in October, but it allows me to not have to watch as many, feature type stuff, and I can go ahead and run through some other stuff. So that's going to be the first thing I do. I think I have 25 watches total for that, so it'll be a full top 25. And then my Voyage to the Files rewatch, as of right now, I think it's going to be Embrace of the Vampire from 1995. Haven't seen this one. I've only seen it once, so I'm kind of interested to rewatch that one. I'm either going to try to see Death of a Unicorn or Sinners. If not, I will watch one of the things that I watched from Fright Fest. I might move around things because one of them that's next up is very long and I don't have necessarily that time for it. We'll kind of figure out things that I do from there. I also have more watches for October movie challenges, and I'm also going to be making a podcast appearance here coming up here soon, but I will give you more details as that gets recorded. So I don't think there's anything else I need to do here for this outro except saying that wraps up this episode of Journey with a Cinephile, a horror movie podcast. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of horror cinema. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and follow along for more deep dives into the macabre. Until next time, keep watching horror, and remember, fear is just a frame away.
It had been a wonderful evening, and what I needed now to give it the perfect ending